Have you ever been at an event and wondered who hired that speaker who put the audience to sleep? Or been the speaker at an event who wished the stage had an escape hatch? Yeah, we're on a mission to end this. Welcome to the Doug Thompson podcast, where event planners and professional speakers come together to create amazing events. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, storyteller and professional speaker. Grab your beverage of choice, settle in, and let's get started. Hey, welcome everybody to the Doug Thompson podcast. And I've just, as usual, I always have great guests. But this week's guest is Dr. Gina Anderson. She's the CEO of Luma Brighter Learning, an award-winning learning company and a 2024 and 23 recipient of the prestigious Inc. 5000 Fastest Growing Companies Award. Dr. Anderson routinely publishes new measurable science-based techniques specifically focused in learning and logistics and transportation to help companies improve their safety scores and uphold compliance. Dr. Anderson is the author of Thrive, How Learning Can Ignite a New Way Forward, and a contributing author to the best-selling book, Perspectives on Invisible Illnesses. Recognized as a thought leader in learning and an Inc. contributing author, she's also the creator and host of the I Love Learning podcast, where leaders from around the world share what motivates them to learn. Dr. Anderson holds a doctorate in education and instructional systems technology from Indiana University, where she also minored in learning science. She has a passion for helping other people learn. Welcome to the podcast, Gina.
Thank you, Doug. It's so incredible to be here this morning.
Thank you. I made it through the intro without, that was actually pretty good for me.
You did. It was great.
It was a cold read. So the logistics thing, and we were talking just before we started, you were down doing an interview yesterday down in New Mexico about logistics and all that. So how did you get in there? That's not someplace. I got a son-in-law that has a transportation company, and I just don't, I didn't ever picture you involved in that somewhere. Tell us a little bit about that. How you got started in that?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. We were in business and doing learning in other industries, and I was invited to actually go observe how truck drivers were being trained. And Doug, have you ever observed? Have you ever gone once a driver goes through CDL school and they're hired for a fleet? Have you ever seen what happens?
I've not seen behind these. I mean, my dad drove, he ran in a warehouse and drove a truck on occasion way back when I was a kid. I remember hiding back in a sleeper so I could get into the chemical plants where he would be doing his run.
Wow.
And my son-in-law, again, he drives a truck, and I've gone with him on a couple loads and that. So that's my limited experience of what goes on. But I imagine they just spend time in the truck. Hey, you can drive, get out there and drive. That's sort of what I envision.
Pretty much. I observed some orientations, and it was like, and this is still happening today. I mean, there are 5 days in a classroom, the lights are turned off. They may be listening to an instructor or watching a video. They're kind of like a check the box. I mean, it's not like engaged instruction. It's more of just like, hey, come in here, we'll get you on the road, and that's it. And then what happens after is even more horrifying. I mean, think about the last time you drove somewhere and you didn't even remember how you got there, right? Like, so these drivers, like, they're in the truck and their training is basically a generic video. So they get sent a generic video, be safe in a parking lot, for example. We all know to be safe in a parking lot. So I really thought we had a real opportunity to help the drivers not only remember the information, but be engaged in the moment when they need to be. Because look, we don't want to be next on a highway next to an 80,000 pound semi-truck or vehicle and have their minds a million miles away. So that was really my why. My passion is really about saving lives and changing behaviors. So I really thought there was a great opportunity. This is an industry that was just calling my name.
Yeah.
It was like, so I have to be here. And oh my gosh, salt of the earth people, Doug. I mean, just incredible folks working hard every day. So I just want to give back to them. So yeah, so that's why we're in transportation and logistics. We work with fleets and warehouse and all sorts of individuals at an organization in the logistics industry. But science is the key to learning, and it's more than just content, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you describe the training, I mean, in reality, that's not much different than corporate training most of us go through anyway. We're going, okay, I got to get through this, so I'm going to put it on 3x speed and not let whatever, and go back, and I can usually fake some of the test. I hope nobody's watching this, but you can usually guess the answers at the
That's the thing,
verification.
right? I mean, the
Yeah,
thing is, your mind isn't even in the training because it's not
exactly.
relevant to you.
Right.
It's like a passive thing you just have to get done for compliance, but that's not helping you understand and learn. And when you're talking about safety critical mission jobs, like, yeah, okay, if we are in corporate training, no lives might be lost, but in a fleet, it could. Like in a split a second, like yesterday, I saw an article where there was a semi truck with a bunch of cows turned over on I-65 in Indiana. That probably was a split second mind shift or something happened that caused that accident. So this
Yeah.
is real. I mean, this isn't marketing. This is real stuff.
No, absolutely. There was a few weeks ago, and I live in Austin, and there was this tragic accident where a truck drove into the back of all these cars that were stopped as one
Hmm.
morning, and killed some people and all. And unfortunately, there was alcohol and stuff involved or something like that. But I mean, you mentioned, I want to hit back on the other. So we'll exit transportation here from it. We'll take the off ramp. But you mentioned something about, you ever drive and not remember how you got there. That has
Yeah.
happened to me. Well, what's the brain doing at that point in time? Because I know I'm like, okay, well, all of a sudden I'm here. It's like I went through a time warp. But what's
Yeah.
happening in the
Well, here's
brain?
the
I mean, I know
thing.
you got some brain science background.
Yeah, so here's the thing, like within 1/4 of, and even less than that for most people, of a second, your mind starts to wander. And you can only, it's called selective attention. People talk about this idea of multitasking. Doug, there's no such thing as multitasking.
Yes,
Like
my
your
wife
brain,
my wife would argue with you, but I I agree with
the
that.
thing is, when you study and you look at the activity of the brain, like under MRIs, and you look at focused attention and the energy around the synapse and what happens, you can tell that you really only can be focused on one thing. And if you are multitasking, you're only going to be on that one specific thing. So when you're driving, and you should be focused on telling yourself and thinking about, okay, I'm driving, I'm on the road, what's in front of me, I need to be alert. But your mind, you're like, oh, I'm going to grab this chip over here, or I'm thinking about what happened at work, and I'm not really on the road. You're driving, but
Mhm.
your mind isn't there. So there is a science, there is a skill to be hypersensitive of where your mind is at, and be in the moment and be connected. Think how many times, okay, this isn't even about driving, think how many times you've been talking to your wife, but you're not listening, or she's talking to you and you're not listening to her,
That
right?
never happens.
No, your mind is like a million miles, like you're not,
Yeah.
she's speaking, but you're not listening. And so that's the power of our minds. We have the power to be connected in the moment with someone and look in their eyes and truly be there. It's just such a powerful tool, but we don't really think about it because there's just so much going on in the world that we can't focus. It's hard to focus on one thing. So it's a skill that you learn for sure.
Mhm. How do you incorporate this sort of mindset into your speaking business piece of that? So, I mean, when I get up there and speak, I'm looking at the audience. I'm looking for reactions. I'm looking for these other things. And as I go through it, I try to, you're, it's one point you're thinking about what's next, right? But at the other,
Right.
how do you sort of work that stuff into your speaking?
Yeah, so the first thing is I usually speak about learning science, and so I know that the attention is very short. The interesting thing is when you speak, you're speaking for like an hour.
Hmm.
So the reality is they're not going to remember. Every hour after you hear something, you lose a major portion of that information. It's called the forgetting curve. There's
Okay.
different scientists that like they say how much content you actually lose. I'll say 70% or 65. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter. The reality is
Yeah.
you're losing it. So the
Right.
key, if you're a speaker, is you want them to walk away with very like enduring understandings is what I call it. Like
Hmm.
what truly do you want them to walk away with? Because that's what they're going to remember. They usually remember my shoes because I wear sparkly shoes, or I'll wear like a bright colored outfit and they'll remember that. But then when you ask, like, what did you remember about what I said? What they're going to
Hmm.
remember, and you talked about this with storytelling,
Hmm.
they're going to remember something that really taps at the human component of psychology. So emotional resonance is key for them to remember. So emotional resonance creates the strength of the synapse that happens in your brain. It can happen one time. Think of, and you're coming on my show at 9/11, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So nobody that lived through that forgets where they were. That was such a strong event. It created such a strong chemical reaction in our brains.
Hmm.
Some people remember what they were wearing, where they were, what it smelled like, everything that was going on. When you're speaking, if you can create emotional resonance, and it doesn't have to be one major thing, you can create small habits and have emotional resonance happen to create deeper and meaningful impact. So the idea is that you want to continue to draw on authentic. So what's meaningful to the people in the audience and what are they interested in, and draw out this emotional resonance, because 3 years from now, that's what you want them to remember. When you think about when you're presenting, what do you want people to remember 3 to 5 years from now, and build the emotional resonance around those concepts? They're going to forget all the details.
Yeah.
All of them. So
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter. So I always say that, like, you're not going to remember all these details, but I bet they remember from my presentation. I do an activity with a selective attention, and everyone sees it's like, oh my gosh, like I truly can't attend to multiple things. And so when you can involve people in a meaningful way and create emotional resonance,
Hmm.
it's a great strategy for speakers.
Yeah. And the storytelling piece is critical for that. Thanks for bringing that up.
Mhm.
And it is that, our brain's wired to sort of remember stories, and that's the fundamental way that we remember things. The more
Mhm.
parts of the brain we can get involved, like I said, 9/11, that hit a lot of different emotions that went in.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's why it stuck with us. But if you go back and you think, for me, if I go back and think about my childhood, I can't remember entire scenes,
Mhm.
but I can remember specific moments about
Mhm.
something, and there's always some emotional thing attached to it
Exactly.
that goes on. So it's like stamps that in, and it puts that in your long term memory where you can pull it back. Um, where we're, the short term memory, we're focused on staying alive, and when I'm speaking, I'm trying not to fall off the stage. I'm trying. Okay, this is
Right.
survival here, right?
Right.
But I think if you use stories for those key moments in your talk, right? There's
Yeah.
certain, you don't, again, you don't, they can't ever repeat yours. I can't even repeat what I've done between talks. Each one's a little bit different.
Right.
But again, no understanding where your audience and the words they use. In your case, if you're doing a transportation one, that's going to be different than if you're doing an online learning science thing, I would imagine, isn't
Right.
it?
Absolutely. And I think really it's about drawing on the senses. So when you think about the senses, like you go to a restaurant, it might not be the actual taste of the food. It may be like maybe you had a great calzone in New Mexico. I don't know. But like really it's the senses. So when you think about the sight, the smells, the touch, all of those things like you talk about, like your childhood that you remember drew on one of those senses. And so a lot of times how you can do that is through storytelling, right? It doesn't have to be storytelling, but it can. That's a powerful strategy. Really it's drawing into authenticity. If you're telling them a story that's not relevant to them or relevant to the situation, they're not gonna remember it because there's no personal meaning for that story. But if you can tell something from your life that connects to their life. Like when I talked a few months ago, or it was actually a month ago in North Carolina, the talk was all about building a mind of a champion. And the reality is most people are feeling disconnected. That's a story that you can tell that's going to resonate with people in the audience because when you ask them and three people in the room raise their hand and say they're happy, there's an issue that people aren't happy. So you can
Right.
talk about building happiness and how to use your brain and the chemicals in your brain to create happiness in your own life and your own mindset that will resonate with them. So the idea is whatever you're speaking about, thinking about that emotional piece you can pull in.
That's some interesting because most people don't understand that we're in control of our own happiness. You make
Mm,
that decision when you get out of bed in the morning. Is it going to be a good day? Or is it going to be a bad day? Pretty much when you get out of there. And I found this, at least for me, I found that out that if I start off with this is going to be a bad day, self-fulfilling prophecy, it is not a good day. Things go on.
absolutely.
But if I start off with some optimism, I try to start off with some meditation
Hmm.
to, again, focus on positive type things and gratitude. I use gratitude a lot that just where I'm at today. I haven't assumed room temperature overnight. That's always a good sign, right? So that I can go on and do that. Now, I think if I start my day, I found that I am better. I'm not perfect. I mean, things go off the rails and stuff, but I learn to handle them better. And I think that's
Right.
what you're saying.
Right, absolutely. There's so much research that shows that your brain structure and all the components within your brain and the chemicals change based on how you respond to those feelings. So like if you live in an emotional depressive state, it actually not only changes the cerebrum fluid around your brain, but it actually changes the structure of your brain. And there's so much evidence of this that when you do practice mindful, like positive practices, it can help. And it's not something that's made up. It's like shown in the research that this is true and it happens. They look at different ages of brains from children all the way through adults. And there are normal signs of aging across all the way from, when you're 12 years old until you're 90 years old, that normal aging. But the reality is those influences in your life. I just released a research paper on this. So it actually shows the influences that you've had, whether it's abuse, whether it's emotions that you've experienced, whether it's going to war. I mean, all these really impactful events have an influence on your brain. And so the thing is, you can change it. That's the power. You don't have to live by these things that have happened in your life. You have the power. Your brain has neuroplasticity. It can change. And so that's the beauty of it. You don't have to live thinking that you're a victim of these events that have happened to you. You can actually move yourself forward. And I think that's the power of going out and presenting and being a presenter, because you can change lives, people that need it and that need to hear these messages of whatever your expertise is, you can have an impact. So that's why I love going out and speaking.
Yeah, you can get reaction. That's the thing I get. I get energy back from the audience when I'm out
Hmm.
there. Now I'm exhausted after I'm done. I mean, because it's like the Bob Seger song. I give every bit of energy away to the audience when I'm doing. Not that I'm a rock
Yeah.
star, but I'm involved. I'm sweating, and it's not because of nerves. It's sweating because I'm really engaged in the moment, and you can't really this gives you close, but it's still not
Yeah.
the same as. And I believe there's an unseen energy that really exchanges between humans, and I think
Mhm.
that COVID was really bad. I mean, it set all of us off on some bad things because we need that interpersonal interaction.
Right.
And I think that's where speaking really helps connect people better.
I like that perspective. Absolutely. I mean, think again, like being in the moment with someone and truly looking at them. People have a hard time with that. Like if you're doing a talk and that's an activity where you have people look at each other, that's uncomfortable because people literally it's hard. We've been so disconnected for so long. We have to relearn. You can unlearn not being connected. You can relearn being connected. And going out in the wild, being with people and being connected in these ways and learning is the seed of life. Speaking and providing information allows people to continue to grow and evolve and be better and be happy. I mean, it ties back to happiness. Learning is the seed and it helps you find passion and new passions. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've learned a lot more since I've been out of school than I ever did when I was in it, because it's just
Right.
part of life. And I look forward every day. I try to learn something new. Comes out of it. Sometimes it's from well, don't do that again. Sometimes
Mhm.
sometimes I learn the hard way. But listening to podcasts where you've got people that have perspectives and stuff like you. I mean, when we had this conversation, there's a lot of great stuff here.
Mhm.
How do you? And I'm finding this more. How do you adjust your messages for generation differences? Because I'm sort of in they call me Generation Jones actually because I'm sort of the late stage of baby boomers and early stage of Generation
Yeah.
X.
Yeah.
We have our own drum we beat to, but how do you sort of adjust your messages for that?
Yeah, so this is really interesting because I just finished, like I said, research on this very topic. And the reality is this isn't about generations, it's about the ages of the brains and
Okay.
the influences that have impacted that at that particular time. And so the idea is you can't deliver the problem with speaking most traditionally is it's done in one way, in one moment, in one time. And so the reality is people prefer to engage in content in different ways. It's a myth that there's a learning style. I mean, you hear that a lot in education. It's not like you're born and you have a style to learn. It's a preference. And so the first step is to get somebody's attention to learn. That's the first step in learning. You have to have someone's attention and then you have to keep it, which is very difficult because like I said, we have
Yeah.
cognitive overload and our
Yeah.
minds wander. So the idea is that you can adjust multiple things about a speech or speaking engagement to engage any preferences, any brain age, anywhere you are in the development. And so how you do that is if you're going in person to do a talk, and you can have it taped. You can offer it. If you think about it, a person needs to hear something 7 plus or minus 2 times, more than that if it's the first time you're hearing it. So this repetition of information is critical. So if you're trying to learn something, like you think about when you learned something in school and then you forgot it because it wasn't meaningful, but you learned it for the test, you wrote it on cards or you wrote notes and you studied and you did it again and again and again and again and again.
Mhm.
Well, the same was the ineffective pieces of speaking engagements, which I mean I'm very attuned to, is usually you go out and you do it once. That's it. Now, half those people probably want to be in their jammies at home and like watch it later on their phone. So the reality is, if it's not presented that way, you've lost that opportunity with those people. There are people that want to come and be there and interact with you. So you want to modify the interaction times. So having it live in person, having it live online, having it asynchronous. So you're taping this. So having it asynchronous where people can watch it anytime, anywhere, and then having a discussion board where people can interact with it. So you can do the time and also the place. Like I said, it can be in person, it can be online. Now the reality is if it's in person and that's it, you can just count on people not remembering much of anything. So
Right.
from a learning science standpoint, conferences are so ineffective for learning. I mean, I get all because you get so much information. Poor speakers that have to go at the end of the day when someone's been sitting there
Or after
for
lunch.
oh right for 4 hours and then you go on stage. That's the worst because number one, they can't take in any more information. I try to tell you can't, your brain is, even as great you are a storyteller, if you're wearing a bunny suit, whatever you do to come in, they may look for a minute, but they're overloaded. They can't process cognitively any more information. They just
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
So it's almost like doing micro speeches or micro opportunities. With Luma, we call them e-nuggets, like little moments that can be repeated over time to help people get the impact of what you're trying to talk about. Because it's not like, oh, the Gen Alpha, that's 11, it's 0 to 11, or like, the upcoming generation. It's like, oh, well, their attentions are shorter because they're growing up with technology. It's just that's what they're used to. That's their preference. And we just have to be mindful of that because otherwise we're just going to keep doing the same thing and we're going to lose people.
Yeah, I like that perspective that you put. It's more of the age of the brain and the experiences they've had up to that point,
Right.
as opposed to using the blanket excuse or blame or whatever. Oh, that's just a Gen X; they'll never get it. I like that other approach because that you can actually break through that, and it is different learning styles,
Mhm.
and like I said, you want to put you want to put the subtext or the subtitles on your video and stuff because a lot of people watch it with the audio off.
Right, exactly.
They could be on a train or something like that. So that's a I really appreciate that insight into that because was guilty. I won't
Yeah.
do it any further of just saying, well, there's Gen X or Gen Y, and
Right. Exactly.
it's that's not doing them any favors. That's
It's just
yeah,
increasing stereotypes. People
right,
ask me all the time, Gina, do men and women, are their brains, do they learn different? And the reality is there are differences, but it just exuberates stereotypes. Everyone
yeah,
has the ability to achieve what they believe they can achieve. And the reality is all the influences that you've had, that you've gone through, every generation has had trauma, like whether it's a war or terror or finances, technology. There's just so much, and it's how we can move through those adversities to move forward to make a better life. So yeah, I try, and even the groups that are coming up with the different generations are warning people, and it's true because it just kind of re-supports stereotypes for, oh yeah, like that group, they're like the gen alpha. They're saying now it's they're the first generation that's behind all the other generations in terms of learning, because of the impact of technology. And it's like, the things that are coming out with, maybe because they're less engaged with other people, there could be in 10 years from now we're going to see some of that truth. But to give them resources they need to thrive today is so important. And to do that, right, like I said, like it's about mixing up and giving them diverse opportunities to learn.
Yeah, I am concerned and worried from one aspect of it, in that the communication, like what we're having, the
Mm.
dialogue. When
Mhm.
I grew up, we didn't have all this technology. I mean, we had one phone in the house, and luckily I had a
Exactly,
30-foot
right?
phone cord where I could get away
Uh,
from my parents, to talk to
in the
whoever.
bathroom, we called it the phone booth because it was on the wall and you go into the bathroom to talk.
Yeah, but I it did. You learned to converse because you
Mm.
didn't have any other way to do that, and I fear that at some point in time we're losing that ability to have this conversation because of the way that they've learned, either through video or texting or Snapchat or whatever.
Mm.
And this is really what makes us human. This is what really connects us, at a deeper level, I believe, is this conversation.
Absolutely. There's research that's out, that recent research that's showing, and it's like a loop. It's like the generations or anybody who's taking their phone and they're scrolling and looking through the photos, it's addictive. It's
Hmm.
actually releasing addictive chemicals in your brain to make you want to look at the phone and scroll. But the irony of it, it also is making you feel depressed, so you're getting cortisol mixed with the dopamine that's
Hmm.
making you feel, so it's this like ongoing loop. And when you're in that depressive state, you just want more of it. And you're not reaching out and going out and volunteering or getting involved in communities or networking and things like that. So we really have to be really mindful of the impact that not only technology, but AI and everything that's in our environment, but it's really about the age of the brain. If you
Hmm.
think about an 8-year-old doing that versus us, that is more established and our brain is more obviously formative than an 8-year-old, there's a big difference. And so we just really have to be mindful that the way our brains are structured and the chemicals and where they are in their development really the influences do impact them very differently.
Yeah, I know our granddaughter, youngest granddaughter. I have 7 grandkids, and like I said, they're all different. They're all, but she doesn't. Her mother doesn't allow her a lot of screen time, and but she loves books and reads.
Mhm.
And when you have a discussion with this 5-year-old, it's like you're talking to a 20-year-old.
Aw.
The way she puts things together. I mean, she's still a kid, still loves
Yeah.
Barbie and Disney and all these other things.
Uh-huh.
So we get to do that, but we read like Disney stories and things. But she will structure sentences with grammar better than I do. I butcher
Mhm.
grammar all the time, and it's like, wow, she's got a lot going on in there. But then you
Yeah.
see some of her peers that are in her age group, and they just they've got the phone on,
Right.
and their if they took that phone away, I think they would probably just have a tantrum.
Right. Well, and it's like it's making us feel worse. It
Yeah.
really is. I mean, and this isn't just my opinion. I mean, this is grounded in evidence because the
Hmm.
reality is it's increasing the chemicals in our brain that is equivalent to the chemicals that make you depressed. So it's there's so much research.
Yeah.
The problem is they're in our environment, and you think about taking it away, we depend on it. So it's
Oh, yeah.
really about balancing the time and use of it, and thinking about why you're using it, because we're in this, the World Happiness Report just came out, right, and it's saying it's the
Yeah.
first time in US history we're not happy again. Like, you don't want to say that, because if you say you're unhappy, you're unhappy. Like, You can be happy. I mean, that's the thing. That's why I wrote my book. I mean, because I wanted to help people. I wrote my book because I'll give it away for free. If anyone wants it, just email me. I'm serious. Because if you're struggling, there is a way to move your mindset forward. I mean, and it's not, it just takes discipline and
Hmm.
small habits
Hmm.
to do that. And you has to be committed to it. Because if you're not committed to it, yeah, you'll just continue to be unhappy.
Yeah, it takes a while to rewire the brain to go. It gets for these very established pathways, and
Absolutely.
sometimes I like the Audubon right to the worst possible subject, and we
Yeah.
need to get these little back roads that go through mountains to to get
Yeah,
to
the
the good
strength
place,
of the
right?
synapses, is really powerful. It's like, think about, you can unlearn something, but it's
Mhm.
very hard to unlearn.
Yeah,
And so, but you can do it. That's the key. You can
yeah.
do it.
I try to learn something new on top of it rather than trying to unlearn something. I try to learn something new to replace it.
That's a good idea. I love that.
Simply because I'm old and I forget crap anyway. So so I've got that. To still tell my wife, look, she looks at me sometimes. How old are you? I said, well, 13. Still,
Yeah.
I
That's
still have that
fantastic.
inside
Well,
my
you have to
brain.
keep learning. I think that
Yeah,
is when you start to see, that is not, I think that is when you start to see the decline.
yeah.
I watched it with my mom. I've seen it, just the decline of the brain,
Mhm.
just how the actual chemicals in your brains change who you are and how you think, and it's impactful. So you have to continue to learn, get out and speak, share your learning and passion, because it ignites a fire in you that will drive you forward.
Well, Gene, I look forward to seeing you in person some point in time. What's the
Yes.
best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so if you want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Gina Anderson. My company's Luma Brighter Learning. I have a website, learningwithgina.com. I have a podcast. So all of those resources are there. I hope you connect and reach out. I'm happy to share learning resources. It's my passion. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks a lot, and we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. Gina, go out and have a great day. Enjoy, finish your coffee up here, and let's learn something new today.
Awesome. Let's do it. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Doug Thompson podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. And share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. This really helps spread the message. Visit thedougthompson.com to join our growing community. Until next time, keep connecting, keep speaking, and keep making a difference.